Drew Shannon.
Now on FM 94.1, still on FM 93.1, 107.7 HD3, AM 540, and the iHeart Radio app. This is News Radio WFLA Orlando. Beyond Reason Radio.
So, are we experiencing the death of the handshake? I mean, it's March 10th, 2020, the official end of the common handshake in the United States of America. Have you noticed that people are a little nervous to shake hands right now, Tom Benson?
Oh, absolutely. And if the handshake is going passé, the fist bump seems to be the way to go.
So the fist bump, because there's the elbow bump too that I've noticed.
And I've also seen people, touch feet, with shoes on, of course. They say hello that way.
Oh, that's a little lame.
Yeah,
I don't want to touch someone's foot.
That's a little bizarre. Yeah.
I still contend that we should do what they do in Japan.
Bow.
Yeah, do a little bow.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you're not touching at all at that point. You don't get germs that way at all. Maybe that's why they started that, I don't know, thousands of years ago, because they knew. They knew. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. I mean, kind of speaks for itself how beyond reason it is today. We're on until 8 p.m. here tonight on News Radio WFLA Orlando. Of course, we're on Facebook Live as well. If you want to like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page, I also post that video on YouTube. So if you ever miss the Facebook Live feed, you can catch it on YouTube. Just search for Beyond Reason Radio. Two big stories we're going to cover here tonight. Coronavirus, of course. I know people are getting sick of already. I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell we're somewhat reaching the point where we're getting a little past the panic, I think, and we're moving towards...
You can tell sarcasm is working in...
Yeah, I mean, you see that on Facebook a lot, all the memes, but
Sure.
I'm sensing that it's kind of like, okay, I'm getting a little tired of all of this.
Yeah.
Okay, we just got to laugh about it
Mm-hmm.
at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's only so much you can do. I mean, unless you're elderly and you want to stay home or you're in certain areas and you have to quarantine, that's fine. But people like me and you, we can't just stop living our lives. So you just wash your hands more, you sanitize more, you take some vitamin C, I guess. There's certain things that you have to do, but I think the panic doesn't seem to help right now. I mean, you can only panic so much.
And you can always use that as an excuse to avoid people you don't like.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't come over today. I can't see you. We're cocooning at home.
There was a meme that I really liked. Let me pull it up because I actually have it here. There's a meme that said, to prevent coronavirus, stay home, avoid physical contact, and don't go into large crowds. Introverts. I've been preparing for this moment my entire life. That's me.
Yeah.
That is definitely me. So first, Tom Benson, how are you? You're okay? You're not sick or anything?
No, we're fine over here. We got our wipes.
Yeah, we do.
You know?
I put on some hand sanitizer before the show, even though I hear it doesn't really work as well as everyone thinks.
It's what the mind, you convince the mind that it's working.
I always go back to this. A good friend of mine, he took chemistry in college, and they did an experiment where they tried different hand sanitizers to kill germs, under a microscope.
Sure.
And they tried soap and water. He said, by far the best thing is soap and water. He said a lot of the hand sanitizers really didn't do much of anything.
Yeah.
It's just the alcohol. The alcohol is the thing that kills it. So, yeah, the alcohol will kill it, but you have to douse your hands to really kill all the germs with hand sanitizer, where soap will grab it and wash it off. And so by far the best thing you can do is wash your hands 20 seconds with warm water and soap.
Up here at the Radio Palace, I avoid doorknobs all the time anyway. So now,
I mean, I avoid people, so that should help. There's two things I want to address, though, seriously when it comes to coronavirus. The first thing is the Trump administration, and specifically President Trump's President Trump's response to this. I think there is good and bad when it comes to President Trump being president right now during a situation like this. I'll start with the good. The good is it seems like President Trump is pretty good at delegating authority. So he delegated the task force to Mike Pence and the Surgeon General and a lot of medical leaders. And it doesn't seem like he's micromanaging too much what they're doing. He's pretty good at letting them handle it. Yeah, he'll comment on things on Twitter, and I'll get into that in a moment. But for the most part, by putting them in charge, letting them handle it for the most part, this is a time where you have to delegate authority because he's not a medical expert. So it's better for him to let them be in charge and not try to micromanage. If he was trying to micromanage everything, probably just screw it up because he wouldn't know what he's doing. He's not a doctor. It's not an insult to him. He's just not a doctor. The bad of having President Trump in a situation like this, in a crisis like this, is he is always someone who exaggerates the positives constantly. We all know this. If you're being honest with yourself, you know that Trump does this all the time. He exaggerates the positives. He uses superlatives constantly. So he's been doing that even now with the coronavirus since the beginning. I mean, here's an example. This is just one example. This is from today when he was talking to the press. He was just talking about coronavirus, and he says, yes, we're taking it seriously, but he always has to twist it into, it's not that bad, things are good, into some kind of positive. It's just how he is. And I'll tell you why this can actually be a problem, but here's Trump today.
Look, right now, I guess we're at 26 deaths. And if you look at the flu for this year, we're looking at 8,000 deaths. And, hundreds of thousands of cases, but we have 8,000 deaths. So you have 8,000 versus 26 deaths at this time. With all of that being said, we're taking this unbelievably seriously, and I think we're doing a really good job. And again, the task force headed up by the vice president has been fantastic.
So I think some of the criticism that he's not doing a good job is definitely exaggerated. It seems like they're doing the best they can. The reason why some of the testing did not work in the beginning had nothing to do with Trump. The CDC made a technical error. It's nothing to do with Trump. It just happens in situations like this. It seems like the task force, for the most part, is doing a great job. But Trump is always spinning things to the positive. And the reason why that can be a problem is in a time of crisis, people are not going to believe you if everything comes out positive. So, for instance, if you are getting treated for a disease, you're in a hospital or something, and you obviously see in some situations the symptoms are getting worse, you are having issues. Imagine if the doctor just came in all the time and said, hey, how you doing? Everything's great. And you're like, yeah, but there's this one thing going on. There's this like rash down here that I'm a little concerned about. Oh, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. It's great. But, I'm in here for this and there's other stuff going on. You want the doctor to be straight with you. You don't want the doctor to be overly negative, but you want the doctor to be straight with you. Yes, this is serious. We're taking care of it. This is how we're going to treat it. Yes, this is a concern. We are going to take care of it. It could be a lot worse. You don't want a doctor to just say, hey, everything's great. No worries about it. We got this under control all the time, every time you speak to the doctor, because eventually you're not going to take the doctor seriously. You're not going to believe the doctor is being straight with you. You're going to think that the doctor is hiding something from you. And honestly, that can cause panic in the long run. If Trump is just constantly positive, and all our leaders are just positive, there are going to be people that start to panic because they're not going to believe them because they see that there are some concerns out there. They see it spreading in nursing homes. They see what's going on in Italy. They see what's going on in Iran, what happened in China. They're not going to believe everything's positive. If we're just straight with them, say there are some negatives, there are some positives. We are concerned about this. This could get worse, but we're prepared. No, everything's positive. You're not going to believe that. Now, one person who addressed this last night, believe it or not, is a big Trump fan. Tucker Carlson on his show, he's been kind of sounding the alarm on coronavirus for a while, actually. But he addressed this and didn't name Trump specifically, but kind of said what I said. Here it is.
Meanwhile, if we're being honest, the other side has not been especially helpful either. People you trust, people you probably voted for, have spent weeks minimizing what is clearly a very serious problem. It's just partisan politics, they say. Calm down. In the end, this is just like the flu, and people die from that every year. Coronavirus will pass, and when it does, we will feel foolish for worrying about it. That's their position. No doubt these people have good intentions as they say this, many of them anyway. They may not know any better. Maybe they're just not paying attention. Or maybe they believe they're serving some higher cause by shading reality. Nobody wants to be manipulated by a corrupt media establishment, and it is corrupt. And there's an election coming up. Best not to say anything that might help the other side. We get it. But they're wrong. The Chinese coronavirus is a major event. It will affect your life. And by the way, it's definitely not just the flu.
So that's Tucker Carlson, who's a big fan of Trump. His fans are big fans of Trump. And he's saying, look, they're minimizing this. And he was talking about the right there, the Republican side there. He said the left has concerns about whether this is racist or something, which is just ridiculous. But he says the right is kind of minimizing this, and this can be a problem because either it minimizes how you respond to it, or it causes you to panic because you're not believing your leaders are telling you everything. That's why I think the best thing that President Trump did is appointed Mike Pence as the head of the task force, because with him, he is pretty good at being calm, but being straight with you. So that's the good and the bad of the Trump response. Now, in a moment, we're going to talk about the economic impacts of this. We're going to have Joel Garris on. He's with Nelson Financial Planning, financial expert. He was on the morning show. The stock market did a lot better today. We'll see what the future holds for this. Then I have to talk about another thing that concerns me with coronavirus. Most of what concerns me with this virus is not the virus itself. It's the reaction to it. It's how our leaders are reacting to it, and how the pundits are reacting to it, and how the people are reacting to it. So we'll get to that next and much more. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
You want to listen to Beyond Reason Radio live on your smartphone? Download the Beyond Reason Radio app now. Available in the Google Play or Apple App Stores.
Message and data rates may apply.
Do you want to learn how to get started making money flipping houses right here in Orlando? If so, we have an amazing opportunity for you. We're looking for a small group of motivated individuals to join our real estate investing team. You'll be introduced to our 3-step system for flipping homes right here in the local area. This is Than Merrill, star of A&E's hit TV show Flip This House. My team and I are looking for a handful of people in the Orlando area who want to learn how to get started making money flipping houses in your spare time using other people's money. Orlando is a perfect market for my system, and next week I'm holding a free 2-hour educational workshop where we'll share how to get started making money flipping houses and how to build long-term wealth with income properties.
To get 2 free tickets to Than's workshop, text your 5-digit zip code to 82,000. Seating is extremely limited, so text your 5-digit zip code to 82,000. Text in the next 10 minutes, and you'll also reserve a free copy of Than's Money for Deals Guide. Just text your zip code to 82,000.
Message and data rates may apply. Earning your degree from one of the top business schools in the country might sound impossible to fit into your workload. But what if there were a business degree that advanced your career skills and gave you access to world-renowned faculty, leaders, and mentors all on your schedule? One that opened doors to some of the most influential CEOs, tech companies, law firms, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. And what if you could earn that degree in as little as 16 months, 100% online? Find out more. Text DRIVE to 79645. Start on the path to earning your MBA or Business Analytics Master's degree online from the W.P. Carey School of Business at Arizona State University today. Learn more about the graduate programs from the top-ranked W.P. Carey School of Business at Arizona State University, offered 100% online. Text DRIVE to 79645. That's DRIVE to 79645.
Broadcasting from the Mills Air Studios. For all your AC needs, go to millsair.com to schedule an appointment. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
So the stock market did a lot better today, but the coronavirus task force spoke on the economic impacts of this just about an hour ago. Larry Kudlow, chief economic advisor to President Trump, spoke about possible ways to help the economy. A payroll tax holiday was one of the ideas, some other ways. So with more on this, we wanted to bring on an expert, and we're talking with Joel Garris from Nelson Financial Planning right now, going to give us his expertise on what's going on here. Joel, thank you so much for coming on Beyond Reason today.
Pleasure as always. Pleasure as always.
So what do you think about what happened today in the stock market?
Well, I think today was sort of a natural reflection of yesterday. I mean, when people think about market volatility, they think only about sort of the negative side of it. And the reality is that when you have something's volatile like the market, there's also sort of the positive side, which is what we saw today. So it makes it very difficult for investors to sort of try and predict the market, meaning I'm going to get out today and then back in tomorrow, because all it takes is to miss some of these up and down days, and particularly these up days like we had today, and ultimately you hurt your return over time. So the volatility really started kicking up pretty good a couple of weeks ago. We've seen these days where one day the market's down 1,000 points and the next day the market's up 1,000 points.
Which I understand doesn't mean as much as it used to, because obviously the overall market, where are we at now with the total of the Dow? It's a lot higher, so 1,000's a lot lower percentage than it used to be.
Correct. The math on it is if it's 1,000 point swing in the Dow is 10,000, well, that's a 10% drop. But if it's 25,000, 1,000
Right.
points is only about 4%. So, I mean, I think the market is clearly looking at this data that's happening, and just the slew of cancellations that you hear about out there, where businesses are canceling conferences and the folks are told not to take cruises. I mean, that clearly has an economic impact that I think the market's really pricing in for the next couple of quarters, where we could very well see ourselves in a contraction mode.
So when the Trump administration today is talking about some ways to maybe stimulate the economy, maybe bailouts for the hotel and the cruise industry, but also maybe a payroll tax holiday of some sort, what do you think of that? Do you think that's actually necessary?
I'm not sure that it's necessary. I mean, we've already cut interest rates by a full 50 basis points. So that's a pretty steep cut in the interest rates. And of course, the reality is that any of those types of movements that you make, whether it's interest rate cuts or payroll tax cuts, it takes a long time for that to show up in the economy. And I suspect that, this current crisis over the virus is really one that is front and center for most likely the next 2 or 3 months. And so if you start to do all this other stuff, I don't know that the stimulative effect really will get to the markets and the economy in time. And it may just be that you've got to let this one kind of pass through, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, my thought originally was what's happening right now, it's not something systemic in the economy like what happened in 2007, 2008. So the demand is technically there. It's just people can't go out and use that demand. But that means there'll be a lot of pent-up demand. In a couple of months, we're going to see some kind of boom because that pent-up demand will all of a sudden flood back into the economy. I mean, do you kind of see the same thing?
No, I think that analysis, Michael, is spot on. I mean, that's exactly the kind of V-shaped recovery that economists are expecting out of this, where you have a massive reaction that ultimately hurts economic development in the short term. But then you're right, you create a lot of pent-up demand. A lot of people still want to go on cruises. A lot of people still want to travel, and they'll do that once sort of the all clear sounds. And so that would follow that V shape, if you will, of an economic pattern.
Any other thoughts on what happened in the market today, or what's going on with the economy and coronavirus?
Well, I think what the other thing that sort of has played out over the course of the past 48 hours is this oil stuff, where you've got Russia and Saudi Arabia really trying to push the price of oil down. I think there may be some negative reasons behind that, in that they may be trying to knock shale oil production in this country off a little bit. I know they'd certainly like to do that. They tried that before back in 2015. It didn't work particularly well. But I think the timing of that dispute over oil wrinkling in or wrapping itself on top of this virus hysteria is one of those potential additional factors that could further push the economy into a recession.
Yeah, although gas prices are going down as a result of this, couldn't that stabilize things a little bit since most of our economy is based on consumer spending?
It'll certainly help. That is true. But the concern is whether the shale production might have to cease or pause for a little bit if the price of oil gets down too low. But that's a great counter effect, is that when we go and fuel up, we'll be able to do it for a lot cheaper. That's for sure.
Joel Garris with Nelson Financial Planning. If people want to find out more about you and Nelson Financial Planning, how can they reach you?
Just by simply going to our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com, or they can always give us a call at the office anytime during the week, 407-629-6477.
And he has a show Sunday mornings at 9 a.m., Dollars and Cents. And you can always get the podcast of that anywhere podcasts are available. Thank you so much for coming on, Joel. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So some good analysis there. Basically, he said something that I've been really concerned about is you have the Trump administration talking about some kind of economic stimulus. You know, there was a Wall Street Journal article that came out last week, I think, that said that Congress should send every person $1,000 and $500 for every kid right now. And my thoughts were, what are we doing? Because what's going on with coronavirus, if you send everyone $1,000, how does that really help? Because as Joel said and I said, the demand is technically there. They just can't use that demand because they can't go out and so forth.
Well, they don't want to go out.
Yeah, they don't want to. So if you send them $1,000, the effect of that won't come until later because it's not something fundamental in the economy. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's something. So eventually the demand's going to come back. Eventually we're going to rebound. That's why I'm so worried. Earlier I talked about the reaction of the Trump administration, but one thing that worries me about the coronavirus is the reaction of the left, which we'll get into in a second, but also the reaction of everyone else, because for some reason in the United States of America, right now we believe the lie that we should have economic growth all the time. And businesses believe the lie that their companies should grow all the time. That's impossible. You can't have constant economic growth all the time. There are going to be things that happen that get in the way. And sometimes it's best to just be prepared for the downturns, ride them out, and then go back on the other end and do even better. But we are at a point right now where every time there's even just a little bit of a downturn, we have politicians in Washington who want to step in, and we have to do this and we have to do that. We have to spend tons of money. And now we have how much? $23 trillion in debt. That's how we got here. And maybe those things don't really help. They just make things worse. Not only that, but it creates false incentives where businesses no longer prepare for the worst. They no longer prepare for the bad times because they just expect the government to bail them out if there are bad times. So what we're doing is we're creating an economy that's based on tons of debt because we'll believe the good times will keep on rolling. We'll be able to make those debt payments. But that's not going to work because something like coronavirus or something else is always going to happen. And you need to be prepared for them. But as a country, we no longer want to do that. And that frankly bothers me. It really does. But why does that happen in this country right now? It happens because we have given the government way too much power over the economy. That's why. We have decided that it's up to the federal government to guarantee constant economic growth all the time, which was not the job of the federal government in the beginning. So once we've created a federal government so giant with all of this power that now we expect that government to constantly guarantee that we'll get a good paycheck all the time, that our business will grow all the time, and that the country's economic fortunes will constantly grow. And every time it doesn't, we run to our politicians and expect them to save the day and save us from the bad times. That is not life. That's not how it works.
But it's a presidential election year. That's why it's working.
Exactly. That's the problem. The problem is we've given the government so much power that if a president doesn't do something, or if the Federal Reserve doesn't do something, they lose an election because the American people now expect this. There's something else that worries me about this too. I talked a little bit about it on Monday when I filled in for Bud. We'll get into that. And we have to talk about the primary, the Democrat presidential primary. It looks like Joe Biden's going to basically have a blowout against Bernie Sanders tonight and be the Democrat nominee. He did something today that got a lot of attention, getting a lot of flack for it. I actually think it could help him in the long run. I'll tell you why next. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
You know what's beyond reason? Yaffee is now on YouTube. Go to YouTube now and just search Beyond Reason Radio.
Homeowners, because of the current stock market sell-off caused by fears of the coronavirus, mortgage rates have continued to drop. So if your 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is higher than 3.375%, you should call True Mortgage now to see if you qualify for a no-closing cost refi. And when I say no closing costs, I mean no title, escrow, appraisal, or lender fees. Every day you wait, you're burning cash. And as we all know, the world turns in unexpected ways. So what are you waiting for? If your 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is higher than 3.375%, call True Mortgage now to see how much money you can save. Call 800-821-7793. 800-821-7793. That's 800-821-7793. Or visit TrueMortgageLoan.com. Sign on the line, Inc. DBA True Mortgage is located at 100 Spectrum Center Drive, Suite 520, Irvine, California, 92618. NMLS number MLD 1713. Not all loans apply. Equal housing lender.
No more fake news. No more negativity. No more groupthink. It's time for the new media revolution. Join me, David Gronowski, tonight at 8 for A Neighbor's Choice on News Radio WFLA Orlando.
See 2020 in 2020. Schedule your free consultation today at Filatowski Eye Institute, iHeartFEI.com.
Dear Mom and Dad, well, the Army has finally seen fit to give me some time off, so I'm writing to tell you that I'm doing fine over here. And Mom, since you asked, if anyone wants to help, just tell them to contact the USO. You can't believe how much they do for us. With love, your son, Michael.
The USO depends on the generosity of the American people. To find out how you can help, visit us at USO.org. The USO, until everyone comes home.
Rush Limbaugh!
Trump tweeted he watched the debate. It's the worst debate he's ever seen, and Bloomberg was the worst debater he's ever seen. And then here is the tagline. Not so easy to do what I did. And there it is. Donald J. Trump, it's not so easy to do what I did.
Rush Limbaugh, weekdays noon till 3. News Radio WFLA Orlando.
Safe space for conservative thought, not for political correctness. Yaffee is back right now.
So I was just looking at the monitor, and they have Eric Trump on TV, and I noticed he has a beard going on lately. I know the other Trump kid has a beard. I know Ted Cruz has a beard. How is it that everyone copied my beard? I must be a trendsetter more than I thought.
You are, yes.
Seriously, I had the beard first. And now all of a sudden, everyone has a similar beard than mine. I don't know what happened. I'm just saying, if you want to see it, you can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page and see us on Facebook Live. Had a bunch of people on Facebook Live tonight, actually. So if you want to do that, go ahead. I just want to say I'm a trendsetter.
Well, Ted Cruz is now self-quarantined, for 14 days? So he's going to get a 14-day growth. He probably.
Oh, great. That means all the coronavirus germs will be all over his face.
Yeah,
in his beard.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about shaving my beard just to see if everyone else follows my lead and shaves it. I can't, though, because the fiance loves it. Like, she would be mad if I got rid of it. I'm dead serious. She is on. So we're going to get into Joe Biden in a second. But before we get to that, I did want to go over something else that worries me about the coronavirus stuff. Like I said, it's the reaction to it. Coronavirus itself is a concern. Coronavirus itself is a problem. I'm not saying we shouldn't take it seriously, But it's always the panic, the reaction from politicians and people that seems to worry me in this world more than the actual problem itself. But one thing I've noticed is the Democrats are doing what Rahm Emanuel said in 2007 and 8, never let a good crisis go to waste. They are using this to push for a liberal agenda. An example of that would be, of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or who was on Late Night with Seth Meyers last week and said this.
You know, a lot of people are discussing is who the president has chosen to put in charge of this task force. He chose Vice President Pence. Is it safe to assume that you do not think that's the best of his options?
No.
Yeah.
I think that we should have a person who believes in science.
Sure, that sounds good.
In charge of the pandemic. Ideally, what we have is a person who believes in universal health care and paid sick leave and an agenda that can help prevent the transmission of disease.
Ooh, universal health care. You think that'll help everyone, Tom Benson? By the way,
well, instead of bread lines, you'll have lines at the hospital.
Oh, yeah, great. So we'll just spread disease in the lines. That'll be wonderful. I should have grabbed this cut from Bernie Sanders at the town hall last night, but it's funny, he was asked about, he says, well, my socialism's like Scandinavian countries. And Martha McCallum said, yeah, but a lot of those countries are actually cutting payroll taxes. They're cutting corporate taxes. They're putting in more market reforms in their economy. And he had no answer for it.
Of course not.
But it's interesting in terms of that. Another thing you should know about Scandinavian countries is they have billionaires. Bernie Sanders says, I don't want billionaires. But they have billionaires in Scandinavian countries, and they definitely, I'm pretty sure they don't allow workers on their board of directors in their companies. So it's totally a lie that, it's just like Scandinavia. It's just like Norway and Denmark. No.
Norway, I was reading the other day, did a lot in social justice and socializing a lot of things back in the 70s, and they got away from it because they said it did not work.
Well, I mean, the United Kingdom did that. They went really socialist, and then they're like, it didn't work. We need Margaret Thatcher. Comes in, has a lot of free market reforms, and the economy bounced back. So Israel started out a very socialist country. They introduced a lot of capitalist reforms, and they have a great economy with a lot of innovations and such like that. But you want to talk about the benefits of the private sector. Why don't we hear from Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's a part of the coronavirus task force? He was on Meet the Press over the weekend, and he brought up a good point on all this. Here it is.
The CDC made a test. There was a technical glitch there. The CDC provides tests for the public health groups in the state and local. What we really need to do now, which were the numbers that I mentioned to you, is to get the private sector involved so that you could literally flood it with millions and millions of tests. That is happening now. But in fact, the American people need to realize that in the beginning, there was a glitch, and we need to overcome that now.
So that's very interesting. He says one of the solutions to the problem, which was created by a government agency by not having a technical glitch, was for the private sector to flood the market and help them.
Yes. How ironic.
Yeah, exactly. So you talk about government control of healthcare, which would totally ruin a lot of those private sector companies that create medical supplies. And he's saying, no, we need more private investment in this. It's amazing how the Democrats say the government screwed this up, and then their solution is more government control of our healthcare. Tell me how that makes sense. It doesn't.
We can do it better.
Yeah. It's just Trump's fault. It's not government's fault. So I want to move on to Joe Biden. So it looks like he's going to win a lot in the primaries tonight. They're calling this a mini Super Tuesday. I don't know how it's mini Super Tuesday if Mini Mike's not involved in it. But,
I've heard it called Super Tuesday 2.0.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's maybe that's better. But I've heard mini Super Tuesday a lot of places. But Joe Biden was in Detroit today and talking to auto workers, and he created a lot of controversy because he got upset, got in an argument with one of them over, gun laws. Basically, he wants to take away guns. Some of this is a little hard to hear, but I want you to listen to this and listen to Joe Biden's reaction here.
You are actively trying to diminish your Second Amendment right to take away your force. now, go to shush.
Biden says he's full of, you know what? So someone next to him to shush.
Second Amendment, just like right now, if you yell fire, that's not free speech. From the very beginning, I have a shotgun, I have 20 gauge, 12 gauge, my son's hunt. Guess what? You're not allowed to own any weapon. I'm not taking your gun away at all. You need 100 rounds.
So you were a veto when you said you're going to take our guns.
I did not say that. That's not. I did not say that. It's a viral video like the other ones you're putting out that are simply a lie.
Your voice, you said that you're taking our guns.
Oh, he just clarified it. Wait. Take the AR-14s.
Okay, this is not okay.
Hold on.
Hey, let's
get this real.
There's a lot of guys. Want
I'm not worried.
Give me a break. You're pushing up on me. Hey, there's a lot of people.
Look, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
You're muted. Don't argue.
I said, are you able to own one? Machine guns are illegal. That's right. So AR-15s are illegal.
How is that a machine gun?
No, it's not. Yeah, do you need 100 rounds? Do you need 100 rounds?
In America, handguns, and there are what you call assault rifles. Why are you advocating for assault rifles when people are buying a handgun?
So he kind of walks away. What's really interesting about this is people say, oh, he's having a meltdown. This is bad. How could Joe do this? This does not look good. I actually think that is the best Joe Biden has looked in weeks. Think about this. He got a little angry, but he actually put together a complete sentence and actually made cohesive arguments.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of them were saying he was lying. I mean, yeah, probably was, but he actually made the argument and stood up for his argument and was willing to get in the face of someone else over his argument.
Who was wearing a hard hat.
Yeah.
He had to talk tough.
And he talked tough, but he didn't sound like he was senile or couldn't remember things or didn't know what he was doing or where he was. That is the best I've seen him in a while. Believe it or not, if Joe Biden is like that more often, he will be harder to beat than this next guy I'm going to play of Joe Biden. I think last week when he was in Missouri when he said something like this, another gaffe.
And turn this primary from a campaign that's about negative attacks into one about what we're for, because we cannot get reelected. We cannot win this reelection. Excuse me. We can only reelect Donald Trump.
So there you go. Gets a little confused. We can't reelect. And there's so many cuts like that. You know, I've been saving all of Joe Biden's gaffe, and I think that was gaffe 10 or something like that.
Sure.
It just keeps lining up, and they're not so bad in an individual basis. It's just the fact that they keep happening over and over and over again. That's the problem.
I heard the campaign wants to cut down on the gaffes by limiting the amount of how long his speeches are. Shorter speeches.
Not a bad idea.
Less chance for something like that to happen.
Yeah, there's no reason for him to have him longer now because he's basically the nominee. But I think it's interesting that you have Joe Biden today angry, animated, standing up for his beliefs, not knowing where he is, knowing what he's saying, putting together complete sentences. And then you have that Joe Biden who can't put together a sentence. I'm telling you, the Joe Biden of today, while people give him some criticism initially, would be harder to beat because there is this. Well,
Joe will have to have his hard hat on during the debates with Trump. That's for sure.
Okay. That would be interesting to see. Somebody told me that he wants a chair at the debates or something.
Yes, the next Democratic debate that's coming up, if there is another one with Sanders,
yeah.
he's going to have a chair.
And I just saw on the screen, and I need to confirm this, but there might not be people like spectators in the debate. It just might be them too because of coronavirus. I mean, they're both really old, so they're extra cautious right now because apparently this virus hurts people who are over 60, especially over 70 or 80.
If they had any smarts, they'd sit around a kitchen table type setup and talk politics.
You know, that would be interesting, actually. I bet a lot of people would watch that, but I don't know why giving him a chair, that doesn't help your senility.
I wouldn't think so.
It doesn't. Yeah, Alzheimer's, it's not the chair that
If we
it doesn't help.
If we can believe the report, I'm not sure my source on that.
I mean, I've heard some criticism of Biden. I have not heard that he can't stand up or walk straight or something like that. That's happening. Probably should be concerned, but there seems to be this trend in the Democrat Party, and this is what they're going to do to try to beat President Trump. They think this is the way to do it. But this trend that you have to support Joe Biden because he's the man of civility.
Mm-hmm.
He's the man of decency.
But not today.
He's the man who's going to unite the country. In fact, here's a little montage of all the previous candidates who dropped out and are now endorsing Joe Biden, all the endorsements here in the past couple of weeks. And it's basically what I said there. The reason why they want Joe to win is he's the man who will bring the country together. Here it is.
You've got to do it in a way that starts to change the toxic and divisive nature of our politics right now. We can't go on like this. And we got a politics right now that makes it sound like being loudest is tantamount to being right. We need a politics that's about decency, a politics that brings back dignity.
It is time for Americans to join hands instead of pointing fingers. It is time to turn back the division and the hate and the exclusion and the bitterness. And it is time to work together, to lift up those who are left out and to bring people with us instead of shoving them away.
And you see that we have a potential to have a Joe Biden who is truly the statesperson in our party, who is truly the one that's calling us to stand together, not to fall apart, who understands, as he said to me in the car ride over here, the soul of our nation is aching right now. There are people afraid right now. There are people who see that the darkness has descended into their own personal lives and their own families.
One of the things that we need right now is we need a leader who really does care about the people and who can therefore unify the people. And I believe Joe can do that. I am supporting Joe because I believe that he is a man who has lived his life with great dignity.
Why does Cory Booker always sound like a televangelist when he speaks? You ever notice? I mean, that's just a side, but he's like, "Here we have descended into the darkness, and Joe Biden will bring us to the light." Come on, man. I'm sorry, that was just a total side note, but
will lead us to the promised land.
Exactly. I don't know. But did you notice what they were all doing there? They were all saying, we're going to have civility. We're going to bring the nation together. We're going to unite and all this stuff. He's the man to get rid of the hate in politics.
Well, the first thing they should do is give that message to Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, Chuck Schumer didn't get the memo.
A good place to start.
But obviously, this is going to be their approach against Trump. They think Trump is so divisive and his rhetoric is so bad that if they present Joe as being the nice guy, it's going to win. And I got to tell you, I don't think it's going to work. I really don't. And I'm a guy who wants more civility in politics. I really do. I wish we had that on both sides. But I don't think it's going to work because I don't think this country as a whole right now wants more civility in politics. I just don't. I look and observe the nation at this point, and they do not look for civility in their political leaders first. They don't. What they want is a fighter. What they want is someone who is going to stand up for their message and be willing to fight for it.
And win.
And win. Exactly. That's why Trump won the Republican nomination 4 years ago. Everyone told me he's a fighter. He's a fighter. I think because of the Twitter world that seems to bleed over into everyday life or something, people want a fighter. And this approach, that's why it's almost good for Trump that Bernie Sanders is not the nominee or will not be the nominee. Because Bernie Sanders is a fighter. Biden has not been a fighter. They're trying to make him man of civility. But as I said in the first cut I played today when he was in Detroit and he was talking with that one guy and he was fighting back, a lot of people criticized him for that. I think that Joe Biden would be a lot better against Trump because people want to fight her. I'm just telling you, that is the way it is. This idea that, oh, well, we're going to be the uniting men of civility to beat Trump. It ain't going to work. I don't think it's going to work just because that's not where the country is right now. We got to end the show with something that made Yaffee Laffee once again, everyone's favorite part of the show. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
I'm here for you, to make children smile, to make profits rise. I am the subservient of the network. Did we get all that on tape?
Hey, my show! My show!
Mine. It's actually my show. Hey, I'm Melissa Fox. Join me for Connection Show, Thursdays at 9 p.m. on News Radio WFLA Orlando.
I'm not gonna tell you again! I'm telling you, I am not gonna tell you again!
9 o'clock Thursdays, Connections.
6 dirty words, and boy, I bet you everybody's heard it. I can get it for you.
International Diamond Center owner Keith LeClaire with a warning. If you're looking for a certain diamond and the jeweler tells you he doesn't have it in stock, but he can get it for you, watch out.
If a jeweler says, I can get it for you, that means they don't have the confidence to put their own money in it, and so they're going to go borrow it from somebody else.
And borrowing from a wholesaler or broker always comes with added markups.
Because they pay, you're going to pay.
At IDC, we don't have to borrow from wholesalers because we own one of the largest selections of certified diamonds in America.
You want a 30 carat? I got it. You want a 10 carat? I got it. You want a 3 carat? I got lots of them. Half carat? I got a bushel full. You come in here, you'll see hundreds of diamonds.
International Diamond Center, a true diamond powerhouse.
It's not a side business. It is our business.
Don't risk overpaying and don't pay broker markups. Get the selection you want at International Diamond Center with 4 Orlando locations.
Message and data rates may apply. Do you want to learn how to get started making money flipping houses right here in Orlando? If so, we have an amazing opportunity for you. We're looking for a small group of motivated individuals to join our real estate investing team. You'll be introduced to our 3-step system for flipping homes right here in the local area. This is Than Merrill, star of A&E's hit TV show Flip This House. My team and I are looking for a handful of people in the Orlando area who want to learn how to get started making money flipping houses in your spare time using other people's money. Orlando is a perfect market for my system, and next week I'm holding a free 2-hour educational workshop where we'll share how to get started making money flipping houses and how to build long-term wealth with income properties.
To get 2 free tickets to Than's workshop, text your 5-digit zip code to 82,000. Seating is extremely limited, so text your 5-digit zip code to 82,000. Text in the next 10 minutes, and you'll also reserve a free copy of Than's Money for Deals Guide. Just text your zip code to 82,000.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
Listen to us anywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Search WFLA Orlando. The place where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Beyond Reason Radio continues.
Welcome back to the show. This is Beyond Reason Radio. It's Orlando's smart talk radio. If you miss any of the show, make sure to catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. You can also catch it on our Facebook page, just like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page, or you can follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee. Some guy texted in and said, talking about Joe Biden, which we were in the last segment, said, the problem is, Mike, that the guy in the hard hat was right. Biden advocates confiscating assault weapons, puts assault weapons in quotes. He's exactly right. I mean, there's no doubt that Biden advocates confiscating assault weapons. The point I was making is it just was, I mean, Biden's wrong on every issue he talks about for the most part. I totally agree with that. The point I was just making is that overall, standing back and just being an observer, it was interesting to me that that was the most coherent I have seen Joe Biden in weeks and months, which I guess anger brings out the best in him. I don't know. So it is time of the show once again, something that made Yaffee Laffee. So usually I would not play something from The Daily Show in one of my Yaffee Laffee segments, but I actually thought this was pretty funny. So Kamala Harris, as you know, came out and endorsed Joe Biden.
She did indeed, yes.
First put out this statement, then put out a video. And Trevor Noah on The Daily Show played some of that video and actually had a pretty funny response to it because it's kind of true. Here it is.
I have decided that I am, with great enthusiasm, going to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States. I believe in Joe. I really believe in him, and I have known him for a long time.
Now please send $10,000 in unmarked bills so that my family can see me again. I'm very happy to be here. I don't understand why Kamala Harris shot this hostage-style video to show her support for Joe Biden. It looks weird. It really does. I bet even the Taliban is looking at this video like, we had better lighting and we were in a cave. Much better, much better. Also, it's a little strange for me. I'm not gonna lie. American politics is a little strange. Like, how's Kamala gonna endorse Joe Biden and not acknowledge that she once called him a friend of racists who opposed integrated public schools? Like, for me, you have to at least say, look, I know we've had our differences, but, or something like that. Otherwise, you make it seem like we're crazy. It's like you're gaslighting us. Just like, I've known him for a long time and he's great. And during the debates, oh, that was different. This is like when you were a kid. Do you ever sleep over at a friend's house? And you could hear their parents screaming at each other in the next room. And then they'd come out like, hey, you guys want pizza for dinner? And you're like, are we not going to acknowledge that Dateline NBC that just went down? All right, because I'll have pepperoni.
It's so true. If anyone has seen that video of Kamala Harris endorsing Joe Biden, it's like she literally says, I believe in Joe. I'm enthusiastically endorsing, but it was like, I believe in Joe. I'm enthusiastically endorsing Joe Biden. Like, like, who is Joe Biden? Does he have like a henchman back there pointing a gun at you outside of the video? What is happening here? And Trevor Noah is actually right. It's amazing in American politics. She literally was the front runner for like a couple of days after a debate where she basically called Joe Biden a racist.
Yeah, she roasted him.
and now we're like, oh, well, yeah, he's not. I'm endorsing this racist now for president. Like, wait, I'm so good. Oh, that's just politics. It's just, it kind of is amazing. So, by the way, I don't know if this is funny or not, but there's a headline here from NBC News. Michigan, the state of Michigan, is not expected to report primary results until Wednesday afternoon.
Oh, really?
Spokesperson for Michigan's Office of the Secretary of State, which runs the state elections, said on a conference call tonight, Tuesday night, that they don't expect to have full reporting of the results from the state's primary until the early afternoon of Wednesday due to a wide disparity in how fast precincts are able to count votes. I don't know if that's normal or not, but if this is another situation where they screwed it up, I guess I really would be Beyond Reason. This has been Beyond Reason Radio. If you missed any of the show, make sure to catch the podcast anywhere the podcasts are available, like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. And we'll see what happens in the primary tonight. It looks like Biden's going to win. And, of course, I'll catch you guys next time.